Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing sort of part 2 of the Aristocrat Cipher. And the main reason why I wanted to create a part 2 of this is because with a lot of the tryouts happening around this time, I've noticed that a lot of people are failing to do the Aristocrat ciphers in the Codebusters tryouts. And so, because of that, I thought it would be beneficial if we just did a couple more examples on the Aristocrat cipher, and as well as I sort of give you guys like a checklist of sorts for you to do whenever you encounter a aristocrat cipher. So let's get started. Um, I will just create a little checklist right over here. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to do a frequency analysis. And this isn't always the most accurate by any means, but it typically is quite helpful. So, um, before you do the frequency analysis, you probably want to read the question text, because in the question text, it already tells us that the character V decodes to T. And so, the first thing that any person should do is to then go ahead and fill that in. And so, this sort of like already giving a letter will be seen on invitationals and sometimes on regionals, but it's rarely seen at states or at the national level. So don't be like too expectant of it. Okay, so now that you've looked at the question text and done whatever the hint tells you to do, now the next thing you need to do is you need to look at the frequency analysis. So here we have that you can see here that W is the highest frequency. And if we take a look at our frequency table, that matches up with E, which has the highest, next highest frequency. And then the next highest frequency here is probably C with a frequency of 12. Since we've already used T, it could be possible that C is A. So that's just something you want to keep in mind. So our step 2 is going to be frequency analysis. But actually, from here, with the frequency analysis in mind, there's some other conclusion that you can draw here. And so, right after you do frequency analysis, the next thing you want to do is look for the keyword the. So, the is like basically a 3-letter pattern that's going to repeat again and again and again. And it's by far the most common word you're going to encounter while trying to solve an aristocrat cipher. So, in the back of our mind, we see that W could be equal to E. And if we were to fill in W as E, that would make this, and this as the, which matches up with what I was saying, with the being one of the most common words. And so we can go ahead and say that W is E and fill that in. So let me just erase these circles here. And then we're going to fill in W as E. And we have one here. So given that W is E, then I think it's pretty safe to assume that L is going to be H. So if we go ahead and fill those in, right here. Okay, so that's our third step. Now the fourth step isn't necessarily applicable here because I don't see any of these occurring, but that is when you have the single letters, which is either A or I. So whenever you see a single letter here, you know that it's either going to be the letter A or it's either going to be the letter I. And that just makes common sense, right? It could be a banana or I did this, right? So those are the only two letters that could be single letters. We don't have any of those occurring here, but that's just something you want to keep in the back of your mind. Now, the fifth step you want to take a look at is when you have the apostrophe letter. So this is typically going to be apostrophe T, apostrophe S. I've sometimes seen apostrophe NT. I can't think of any more ones off the top of my mind, but that's where you want to keep in mind that it's something like this, right? And if it's apostrophe T, then typically the letter before it could be N, right? It could be like don't or can't or won't or something like that. So that's where you look at apostrophes. All right, and then the last step that you want to take a look at is just any general patterns. General patterns. So what I could see here is in terms of general patterns, I could see this double E occurring a lot. It occurs here, here, and then there. So that could be words like every, right? Where there's two E's. It could be words like, I don't know, enemy. It could be elect, right? So there's tons of words that have those two E's. And so you just want to keep those in the back of your mind while trying to solve. Okay, so let's actually get down to solving this. The first thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to try to go with our frequency table. And so we found out that C could possibly be equal to A. So I'm going to go ahead and try that out. So if I go ahead and fill in all of the A's, okay, I think that's almost all of them. So now we see an interesting word popping up here, which is a blank blank. Typically, this is going to end up being and. In some cases, it's like R, but since we know there isn't an E, it's not going to be R. It could be like ant, but that's not, it can't be T because we've already solved for T. So I think it's a pretty good guess for us to say that this is and. And so S is going to be equal to N, and N is going to be equal to D. So then we get S there. There's an S over here, and an S over here. And then we have N's are equal to D. So there's one other N, which is right here. Okay. So now we're trying to get like sort of a better idea here. Here we can see we have something blank ENT. So the only thing I can really think of is event. So we're going to try putting event there. And B is going to be equal to V. There's one other occurrence. So let's try to find the occurrence happens over there. Okay. So something event. Okay. So let's try looking at our next frequency. The next highest frequency, which I can see here, is Q, and that corresponds to O. So if we try putting Q as O, over here we'd get Evior. So that's probably not going to work out. So let's not take a look at that frequency. So we have and here we have the. Okay. If we take a look over here at this word, we're getting something event, and it starts with an EVE. So I'm going to take a guess that it's going to be every, because any other like EVE words, which I think of, the only one I actually really think of is event. So let's just try every for that one. So Q is going to be equal to R, and D is going to be equal to Y. So let's fill in all the Q's. There's one there, One there, one there. Okay, and then we also found out that D is equal to Y. So let's find, there's one here. And that looks about it. Okay. So we filled in a couple more words. I'm specifically looking at this word and this word because it's only missing one letter. So first we have A blank ARD. I think the most obvious one that I think would go there is probably award. So let's try it with R is equal to W. Now we have, the next thing we have here is we have A blank ART. So the only thing I can really think of that probably goes there is apart. So let's try that. So award, apart, something, the something, something. Okay. So we filled in just a little bit more. So the next thing I would kind of want to look at is this right here. There's only a couple of two-letter words that start with A. There's an, there's at, there's as, and I think that is it. I can't think of any more words. So we've already found N, so it's not an. We've already found T, so it's not at either, which only leaves us with as. So let's try X as S. So we have an X there, an X here, an X here. Okay, so I've just gotten another four-letter word, which is ARA blank S. That's a little bit odd. I've never seen that word before. So let's just take a pause on that one. And let's take a look at any other ones we can find. So we have something, every event something, as something, the blank something something. So let's see. Okay, this is the one pattern that I noticed here. I'm seeing that there's a repeated word here, and there's R blank SH. And looking at the fact that Z has 4 occurrences, I'm going to take a good guess and say that's Irish, because it has to be a vowel, and I mean, none of the other vowels really make a lot of sense there. So let's try going for Irish over there. And so we fill in all the I's. Okay, so now we got a couple more two-letter words. We have TIT blank E. So I think the only thing that fits there is title. So we've got an I. Okay. Now we've got one more, which is A blank AIN. So once again, I think the only one that fits there is again. Okay. Now we've got something up here, R blank RAL. So it has to be a vowel, and the only vowel that makes sense there is rural, so a U. So T's are all going to be used. We get usual there. So every event, something as usual, the rural blank something, again the title, and award apart blank the Irish something. Okay, so we don't have a lot left, and a lot of this is just going to be some guessing. So rural ARA blank S, and I'm seeing that M only occurs once, so I'm going to take a shot at M being B with the rural Arabs. Okay, now Arabs and Irish, and we have something that starts with ENE, so I'm going to take a shot at that being enemy, with F being M and D is Y. So we get M over here. This is probably going to end up spelling out from then. So we get F over there, and J is equal to O. So now the rest, we're only missing a little bit. So every blank something, as usual, the rule Arabs, and I is L, and P would end up being C then. So then we get every event cycle, as usual, the rural Arabs elect again the title and award apart from the Irish enemy. Okay, so that finishes that up. If there's anything from me solving all of that that you want to remember, it's going to be these 6 steps that I highlighted right over here. All right, so as usual, feel free to pause the video and try to solve this Aristocrat Cipher on your own, and try to keep in mind these 6 steps. Okay, so hopefully you pause the video. A key thing that you should have recognized is that we have a single letter right over there, so that's going to be quite helpful. We have a lot of stuff starting with V, 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 R specifically, so that is probably going to be helpful. But anyway, here are the answers. So you should have gone, this Codebusters test is a multi-stage mental capacity exam that progressively gets more challenging throughout. And I'm just looking at the frequencies. You probably could have used these 2 frequencies to help you out a little bit. So, yep. So if anyone wants to remember anything from this video, it's probably going to be these 6 steps right over here. Hopefully, this second video helped you guys understand the Aristocrat Cipher a little bit more. And if you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and subscribe. And let me know down in the comments if you have any questions. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!